Thought I would bring in my 2 cents on this whole rolling for stats or point buying for stats. Let me see. I think when I started playing D&D, we would roll 4d6, drop the lowest, and then put those numbers to what stats you want to put in. We never did straight down the line, rolling 3d6. This is your strength. This is your dex. I don't even remember the order they came in, but that was just that's a little too rigid. And so we would do 46, drop the lowest. 46, drop the lowest 6 times. Then sometimes we would even do maybe 46, drop the lowest, but roll it 7 times. And then you can drop another one of those stats. Never had a problem with really having a 2 of low of a stat. Not that I can remember. But let me tell you, the good thing about randomly rolling is that it makes you, sometimes, not always, it's usually random enough where you can fiddle with the stats and make whatever character you want. But sometimes those stats make you decide to play a character you normally wouldn't. And I like this about the rolling the dice to get your stats. On the contrary wise, it is sometimes hard to make the character you want, which is eventually, to a point, the rolling randomly for stats just got pointless because I played the game enough to know what kind of character I want to play. And then that's when D&D, another reason D&D stopped for me and moved to GURPS. GURPS is a complete point buy system with your stats, with your skills, with your advantages and disadvantages. And we'll say average GURPS stat is 10. Everything starts at 10. There's strength, dex, IQ, and health. There might be more now, like will and fatigue in 4th edition, but I haven't looked at the 4th edition book in a while, so I'll keep to what I know. So those stats start at 10, and you can spend your points. The DM gives you amount of points. We'll say 75 to 100 points is probably average given to 100 is you're going to have a good character. You're going to have someone who's above average and not just some commoner. He's going to have some higher stats and he's going to have a lot of skills. So you start at 10, you raise or lower. Raising costs points, lowering gives you points. So if you have a strength of 10 but you're not going to play a strengthful character, you're going to lower him to 8, so you get an extra 20 points. So now you're already at 120 points you can spend. I'm sure this is almost exactly the same in any point buy system, but we'll stick with what I kind of know. So in this, it leads you to be able to, if you have the idea of a character, point buy is beautiful. If you don't have an idea of a character, point buy can be a pretty overbearing, and you don't quite know what to do with all these things to spend in here, and you'd rather just be given these things and build your character from there. And that's a beautiful thing too, to just be able to take these numbers that you've rolled randomly, put them in the order you like and to which stat, and generate your character from there, just out of pure thin air and randomness. That's great, and I would never back down on the rolling random thing. In the Gamma World, the new Gamma World even brings it into more, and you roll your races randomly. And I really liked what they did with Gamma World, but we'll stop doing that, stop talking about that, and go back to point buy. But point buy is so great because it gives you this pro and con, this negative and positive of like, I can take a disadvantage and get more points for it and maybe raise my stats higher, but I am now going to have that disadvantage. And that disadvantage is going to usually have something to do with your game mechanics. It either gives you minuses, the advantages give you pluses. or it's going to be a heavy role-playing thing, or it's going to be something the DM has to keep in mind and bring out in the game eventually, say like an enemy or a weirdness magnet is a favorite of mine. And the same with advantages, there's luck, so the DM would just keep in mind that maybe once a session something coincidentally lucky is going to happen to the player, or the player has alertness, which gives pluses to perception rolls and all that. But all these really balance each other out, because you can take positive points and you can take negative points, and everybody starts with the same pool of points. So everybody's going to try and make their character how they want to. I think also point buy maybe keeps people from power gaming a little bit, because there is still that randomness where you could get 18, 18, 18, 18, 16, 18, 18. But, of course, it doesn't happen very often, but it might. But that's just randomness too, and funny things like that happen. But in the long run, I would have to say I go for point buy. And I go for point buy in GURPS, because it leads to even more knowing what your character is going to be, with these advantages, with these disadvantages, with picking your skills and raising them high or low. High, you don't really lower your skills. But the point buy leads to a very thought out character, I feel. The random one does eventually, but not right off the bat. The random one broadens your mind. The rolling for your stats broadens your mind onto what your characters can be. Point buy is for when you have a character in mind.